Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the St. Helena Planning Commission for December 15th, 2015, and ask Planner Aaron to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Koberstein,
Here.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Present.
Commissioner Monette,
Here.
Commissioner
Kishner.
Commissioner Kistner,
Okay, Jim.
and
Here.
Chairperson Parker.
Present.
Grace is the new kid on the block.
Our longest standing commissioner. Moving on to public forum, this is an opportunity for the public to address the commission of items of interest to the public that are not listed on tonight's agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the commission may not engage in discussion nor take action on matters not described on the agenda. Would anyone like to speak at public forum? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to our consent items. We have one, the approval of the minutes from our December 1st, 2015. Do we have any revisions or a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for
Second.
December 1.
Second.
Commissioner Kistner,
Here, yes.
Commissioner Monette,
Yes.
Commissioner Koberstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Yes.
Chairperson Parker.
Yes. Moving on to our public hearings, we have two this evening. One is a demolition permit and design review for 1585 Arrowhead Drive. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Parker. The existing 13,795 square foot parcel is currently developed with the 1,765 square foot 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1-story single-family residence with a 576 square foot attached 2-car garage. The applicant is seeking a demolition permit and design review approval to demolish a majority of the existing home in order to construct a new 2,836 square foot, 1-story single-family residence with a 348 square foot attached 1-car garage for an increase in square footage of approximately 807 square feet. The new home would be finished with a combination of vertical and horizontal siding with a stone base, wood windows with aluminum cladding, and a composition shingle roof. The height of the proposed 1-story home would actually be 18 feet 6 inches, which is approximately 4 feet taller than the existing home. There was a typo in the staff report that had it at 19 feet 6 inches. Commissioner Koberstein noted that the assessor's office has the parcel listed at 14,045 square feet, which is 250 square feet larger than listed by the applicant. This is a very common occurrence for a number of reasons. Usually it's due to the contractor architect doing their own calculation without checking with the assessor's office. In this case, the applicant's calculation is more conservative, so staff is not concerned. Should be noted the property is bordered by our Arrowhead Drive on 2 sides, as Arrowhead Drive dead ends into vineyards. Also that the parcels south of the subject property are designated for agricultural uses, are outside the urban limit line, and are currently under Williamson Act contract. Therefore, it is unlikely the Arrowhead Drive will be extended in the foreseeable future. As far as the floor area ratio is concerned, the applicant is proposing 2,836 square foot home with 348 square foot attached garage for 3,184 square feet total. With the 200 square foot FAR exemption for the covered parking as noted above, the project will consist of 2,984 square feet, which is 970 square feet less than the maximum square footage permitted, for a FAR of 0.22. The project as proposed meets all the requirements of the medium density residential zone, including lot size, building setbacks, etc. Staff finds that the proposed configuration of the site, the overall design elements and proposed materials and finishes are in character with the neighborhood and the community in general. Project would improve the aesthetic of the site and would not adversely impact adjacent properties. Therefore, staff believes design review findings can be made and recommends approval of the project. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Do we have any questions for staff? Does anyone have any ex parte actions to disclose?
No. I have a question. Is there going to be a wood-burning fireplace? Is that anywhere in the plan?
No, the state doesn't allow you to build wood-burning fireplaces.
Okay, so I just always check. Thank you. Also, there were no letters pro or con. Yeah.
No.
Perfect, thank you. I'd like to open up the public hearing and invite the applicant to come forward. I believe they have a small presentation. Is that correct? Oh, the owner.
Good evening. My wife and I bought this home earlier this year, and our goal is to open the home up to take advantage of the views of the vineyards. Right now, it's rather dark in the interior of the home, and our goal is to really take advantage of the views of the vineyards and what have you. We've met with the homeowners association on the street and presented our ideas and plans to them to make sure that they felt comfortable with the plans. The main restriction of the homeowners group is that there cannot be a second story, so which we've clearly abided by that, and try to make sure that the aesthetics of what we're trying to do meet with the homeowners group, which they felt comfortable that it did. So I think, any other questions or?
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, they were okay with the 18 feet?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Was the display piece for this project? It is, right?
Yes. Perfect, thank you so much. Would anyone else like to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and invite commissioner discussion.
Well, I think it sounds like a great project. I really like it. I like the fact that there was contact with the neighbors and the homeowners association. At first I thought, I wondered if the height might be out of place. I looked at some of the pictures of the adjacent homes, which was nice to have in the report. And it looked like some of them might be as high. So I wasn't sure if that was going to be an issue, but the neighbors are fine with it. Nobody's complaining. It sounds like a big improvement, and I support the project as it's presented.
Thank you.
And based on Commissioner Koberstein's finds, it's actually, the FAR ratio is more advantageous, and the height is actually, again, shorter than reported, so.
I like the project, and I would like to thank the applicant for bringing us a storyboard here. I've been asking for that for about 3 years now, so thank you very much, and I like your project.
I would only add, I think that this is a very cohesive neighborhood, small area, and a lot of similarity in the home styles, and I think that the applicant is echoing what's already there. It is a little bit larger than some of the others, but it's also one of the larger lots, and it's, on the corner with nobody but vineyards behind, so I don't have any issue with it. I think it's a nice project as well.
Perfect. I echo my fellow commissioners' sentiments and think it's very appropriately and very tastefully done, and get full support. If we could have a motion.
We've determined that the project is exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to Section 15301, which exempts demolition of existing structures, and Section 15303, which exempts the construction or conversion of small structures, including single-family residence, garages, pools, etc. We accept their findings and approve a demolition permit and design review for the proposed remodel and expansion of the residence located at 1585 Arrowwood Drive.
Second.
Commissioner Kistner,
Yes.
Commissioner Monette,
Yes.
Commissioner Koberstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Yes.
Chairperson Parker.
Yes. Thank you so much. Moving on to our new business, item 6, it is the Planning Commission to consider and have a recommendation for a new ordinance regulating medical marijuana within city limits. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Parker and Commissioners. The project before you this evening is a request from the Planning and Community Improvement Department for review and direction on draft municipal code revisions to regulate medical marijuana within the city limits. The proposed regulations move regulation of medical marijuana into an element of land use, separate from other elements of the municipal code. On October 9th of this year, Governor Brown signed into law the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act. This bill does a number of things at the state level with regards to medical marijuana regulation, but it also had a requirement that local jurisdictions pass regulations by March 1st, should they choose to keep local control over medical marijuana regulation. So in response, staff put together the proposed ordinance, which essentially just codifies and maintains the current regulations of medical marijuana here in the city. And currently, outdoor cultivation of marijuana is expressly prohibited, while all other unpermitted medical marijuana activities are permitted through permissive zoning limitations. Basically, if the zoning code doesn't identify it as allowed, it's prohibited. In response to the requirements of the above legislation, staff prepared an ordinance which essentially continues the prohibitions as mentioned. Currently, all commercial medical marijuana activity is prohibited. However, indoor cultivation is limited or is allowed under a limited instance, and non-commercial delivery services are allowable. The attached regulations would maintain those allowances but prohibit all, as mentioned, all commercial medical marijuana activities and all outdoor cultivation. As mentioned, in order for the regulations to take effect, we need final action from the council by January 26th to allow the 30-day period for the ordinance to go into occur in order for those regulations to be effective by March 1st. So we need action from the commission today in order to meet the next city council meeting and then to get the second reading by January 26th for them to go into effect. Staff referred the proposal to the police department. They have no concerns or issues with the proposed regulations. Generally, they support, they identified that basically we don't have issues with medical marijuana here in the city, and they attributed that to the current regulations. As I mentioned, the proposal will bring medical marijuana into the land use section of the municipal code. It'll be regulated as a land use, which is part of the requirements from the state law that was passed. No correspondence on the issue has been received by staff, and staff is recommending Planning Commission direction regarding the proposed medical marijuana regulations in the city. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I have one. If I read this correctly, the definition of medical marijuana dispensary, it specifically accepts out certain clinical things like a licensed clinic, a healthcare facility. And to me, the implication is that they can dispense. But the ordinance isn't, I think it's just an implication. And I think if that's what's intended, it should be more clear that they are permitted to dispense medical marijuana.
Where are you reading this?
I'm reading the definition of medical marijuana dispensary. It's
G.
yeah, it's in the Exhibit A. It's in the definitions. It's G. And it basically says what a medical marijuana dispensary is, but then it says it doesn't include the following, as long as they're otherwise regulated by the code. And then it goes on to list a variety of healthcare-related activities. And I think the implication is because they're not a dispensary, they're allowed to dispense. But it's not clear. The only other mention I found about dispensing was on the next page, when you get to paragraph E, it says a person may deliver or transport medical marijuana to a qualified patient or person with an identification card. So it seems to me that these uses are allowed to dispense, but it's not clear. And I would just suggest that before the ordinance be finalized, that be ironed out.
It's my understanding that state law precludes those types of organizations from dispensing medical marijuana. There's medical marijuana has a number of legislative acts behind it, both actually codified and documented through numerous white papers and other direction provided from the state, partially while the current governor was Attorney General. I can identify that as a question to the city attorney's office to ensure that we're not kind of creating a backdoor for other types of uses to dispense medical marijuana. Generally, though, those types of uses, as regulated by these health and safety codes, are not, because they are not dispensaries. So I think the distinction is being created because there are some similarities in the definitions, but one is expressly prohibited from dispensing, and the other is allowed to if the regulations are written to.
So the ones that are accepted out are allowed to. Is that what you're saying?
They're not allowed to dispense, but they have similar characteristics to their definitions because they are medical facilities. But again, I can circle back with the city attorney's office to make sure that we're not creating a backdoor
it's just
situation.
not clear to me who, if anybody, can dispense under
Because
this
I would read
ordinance.
that they could prescribe, I mean, it's the same as what the caregiver can deliver, but it is not a commercial delivery service. So, I mean, they could deliver from Santa Rosa, where a dispensary is legal, into our city, and as long as it's not commercial, correct?
So
As
no,
as
so if
caregiver.
a dispensary is selling medical cannabis or medical marijuana, that is a commercial activity.
Right.
A caregiver is someone that, say, I have a prescription, but I'm not able to
Go get it.
grow or go get it. I can designate you to be my caregiver to provide that to me. It's not a commercial situation
Right.
because it's
Right.
not. There's no financial.
Correct, but that's allowed today.
Exactly.
And my understanding is all we are simply doing is moving this from a conditional use to a land use. All right, I mean, we're basically codifying and moving to a land use.
That's correct.
Scenario. So this would, changing this wording would materially change what we do today, which in my view would require more public discussion because it would be a change to what we're doing from simply if we're doing something very simple today, really, and just
Yes.
moving it into the land use
Yes,
definition. Hence why we probably have no one here, and
that's
it's
correct.
kind of a non-event, other than
That's
it gets ahead of Jerry Brown. But if we were to make material changes, I think more discussion and public comment would be sought after.
I would say if the changes are intended to change the regulations generally, then yes. If it's to get clarification on the regulations, because again, the whole goal is to maintain the status quo. But I will circle back with Commissioner Culberstein's question to the attorneys. To get to your point, I think it exempts them because the state law would prohibit them from dispensing anyway, because these are other types of uses, like a hospice facility, for example.
If I
So
can,
a hospice cannot dispense medical marijuana to a patient.
Yes, because they are not a medical marijuana dispensary.
But it also said, okay, the question I had on that
It's confusing.
same paragraph, it says, let's see, whether fixed or mobile where medical marijuana is sold, made available, delivered, and or distributed to, by or to 3 or more people. So does that mean 1 or 2 people is in a different category, and that might be covered? That might be what you're.
The reasons for this language are because of numerous other state laws that also affect the regulations. So this language is trying to address those other state laws. It's not trying to make any changes as to how things are done today. This was written by the attorney's office in order to maintain what we have today, but also maintain the legitimacy of the other laws as established by the state.
Well, can I infer from that then that what we have today is that it is okay to deliver to fewer than 3 people?
On a non-commercial,
Yes.
yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
and it would be in the context you just
Where no
described.
transaction is taking place. You're simply
Yeah, so
designating a caregiver
So in a
to go
hospice
pick it up for
It's
you.
a caregiver providing it, not a dispensary providing it, yes.
So at a hospice, they could do that. A caregiver. there.
Hospice would have nothing to do with providing medical cannabis. However, I believe a patient could use medical cannabis in a hospice facility if it was provided
I
by
see.
their caregiver.
They'd have to go, not that caregiver. another-
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
But still, it's okay 2 or 1, fewer than 3 people.
Based on the regulations proposed
I mean,
to
that's what
maintain
this
what's
is saying.
there as it's written. But that gets back to the definition of commercial activity, dispensaries, caregivers, all of those other things that are also regulated but separate from these rules.
I think maybe an easier way to understand G, at least, is that these locations, this law isn't necessarily applicable to them because they're being controlled by a stronger, more state-controlled
Exactly right.
law. So that's
Exactly
why
right.
it does not include, because they're being controlled by Chapter 1 of Division 2 of the Health and Safety Code,
Yes.
which is stronger and provides, I totally lost me. Yeah,
oversight, the
yeah, it's,
oversight,
yeah.
And getting to your point, I'm not sure why the language is necessary, but the attorneys felt it was, so they included it.
And just for my clarification, if you provide, not to use the word twice, if you provide clarification, then we don't need to circle back on this. You can move this through on the council, and so we can meet our deadlines and still make the 30-day.
I'll just circle and ask
can
the
let us
attorneys
know
to.
the answer, but-
Yes, no problem.
Perfect. All right. Are there any other comments? All right. If we could have a motion for a recommendation to the city council.
So move.
Excuse me?
Was it public?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me. Thank you, Jim. I would like to open up the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item? I'm just so excited. Jesse? All right, going to close the public hearing and invite a commissioner motion.
So moved. So am I moving to accept the proposed ordinance as written and recommend that it be furthered on to council for consideration and vote?
Second.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Yes.
Commissioner Kistner,
Yes.
Commissioner Koberstein,
Yes.
Commissioner Monette,
Yes.
and Chairperson Parker.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to our last agenda item, it's our department report for staff to give us an update on any relevant items.
Just a brief report tonight. Just a reminder to the public and the commission that the January 5th meeting is canceled. So we will not be meeting the first meeting of January. And we will be voting for the chair and reviewing the bylaws on the 19th of January, which is our second meeting of the month.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'd like to adjourn this meeting.